From the basement. Let me try this one more time. From the basement of our townhouse, it's the Roarin' 20s podcast. I'm again here with my wife, Shearston. Shearston, how are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty well. I've been better.
You've been better?
I'm afraid I lost my ring.
That's right.
Weighing on my mind.
There was a minor trauma just before we came down to start the show. Go ahead.
I take my ring off before I go to bed at night because I've heard that sheets are like sandpaper on your rings and that it can make the diamond pop out. And I always put it on the
Pinterest strikes again.
No, that comes from family members. And I think my 2-year-old got a hold of it. I forgot to put it on this morning. She could have taken it anywhere. So I'm nervous.
She has been putting stuff down our air vents.
I actually went and felt down there.
It'll show up. I'm not that worried.
I hope so.
I'll be okay. Tonight, the topic is location, location, location. You hear it all the time in real estate, and it's so much of what drives and influences so much people, their thoughts and their joy and their happiness. A lot of people get so tied in to location that it becomes a huge factor within their life. And so tonight we're kind of posing the question, should you grow where you're planted, or do you go and find better soil, right? And so that becomes one of the really important issues that a lot of people take on during the time you're looking into colleges and where you're going to go to school, and throughout your 20s. Now you're graduated college and now you got to figure out where you're going to live. Shears and I, we're newly married, 3 years now, but
we still don't feel like we're planted somewhere.
We still figure it out.
It's a conversation we have a lot.
So one of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with is trying to figure out how to either be, because there isn't a perfect place out there. Is there a perfect place?
No, I don't think so. There's give and take everywhere.
So because of that, right, there's always going to be options or different places you might look to go, right?
Yeah, I used to think there was a perfect place. Because, like when I went off to college, one of the biggest factors I considered was location. And I went and visited different schools, some on the East Coast, some on the West Coast. And, I got to the East Coast, and that's, I felt it in my veins. That's where I was supposed to be. And I moved there. I loved the, atmosphere, the vibrancy of the city. And I moved there, and I still like the city. I moved to Boston. I still loved the city, but I wasn't happy there. I wasn't happy, and so I came back here. So I still might go back. We've still talked about, where can we go? I don't.
Well, part of it is where your opportunities are and what
you're. Well, that's for most people. Where very few people I think can just say, this is where I want to live, and so I'm going to go there and start my life, see what can happen.
Right. Well, but I think one of the ideas, I guess, is, when you're in your 20s, you can explore and you can go and do whatever it is. And it's really important, a lot of people say it's really important for you to test yourself and to get out there, to try different places and to change where you are. But I think this can even relate to, you live at an apartment complex for a little bit, and your life is stagnant. You're kind of in the same spot at that same place. Maybe it's worth, mixing up a little bit and switching, just
even
your day to day,
even
just within your own city.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that there is, it's a very popular thought that you need to constantly be changing and change your location and, maybe look at different places and see kind of the benefits of going somewhere else. But
I'm learning that you have to take into account other factors. I always thought it didn't matter. I just wanted to go and be where I wanted to be. And now I care about being close to my family
Right. So I
the
mean,
older I get
as
and as my
life
family grows.
as life goes on, things change, and you make decisions about that. But one of the big things that I wanted to kind of address when we talked about this is that I think most people feel that you need to change, your location and go someplace that helps you to, you know, accomplish the things that you need to do. So, for instance, if you are going to be an actor, right, you probably do. Like, if your whole thing is living out your dream, you're going to be an actor. Like, it's best for you to probably go to Southern California, try your hand in Los Angeles, right? Like, there's things that are practical in that sense. But then I feel like there's people that are like, well, but I just need to feel creative. I need to live in a place where creativity is embraced, and so they make the decision to go out to, like, say, like maybe Austin, Texas, or they're gonna try, some cool place.
Yeah, I
I
read
gotta
that
live in New
recently
York,
in
or
an
I gotta live.
article. Like, you should, try and live out your dreams, which I agree with. And so if you want to be an artist, go to Seattle or Austin, Texas, or, you know,
Somewhere that cultivates your artistic. It's inspiring in some way,
but
but
is it really where you're going to be happy? I mean, if you leave family or if you struggle to the
when
point that you're miserable,
yeah. So
how long do you try it out, or how hard do you work to, realize this dream that you have in your head of where you're supposed to be?
well, and I think it's really hard to figure that out. I mean, each person has their different pain threshold. You have this idea, I'm going to go to Los Angeles and I'm going to try my hand there. And then what ends up happening is you end up, not for everybody, but, for a lot of people, you end up working a job that you didn't think that was what you're going to have to do for quite as long as you're having to do it. And you're not really making any progress in that. And so then the next thing you're kind of stuck. You know what I mean? Your main concern now is just simply, figuring out rent and being able to kind of handle your scenario day to day life, rather than worrying about the creative part of your life, or just the goals that you had in mind when you went to a certain part of the country.
Yeah. So you've lived in several different, really different places. Do you, in places that a lot of people dream of going? You've lived in London and Southern California, right by the beach, and here in
Hawaii.
Hawaii. Do you feel like it was it made your life better to be in those
So
places?
the experiences, you can't beat the experiences. Like travel, I really honestly believe that, when you travel, those experiences that you have with it, the different things that you face, they're all good for you, and you can, build off of it. But no, I don't think it was really necessary for me. I am somebody that has floundered during my 20s. You know what I mean? A little bit. I don't think I totally wasted my 20s, but I do think that I fell victim of kind of the societal thing where it's like figure out your life when you're 30. That whole thing. Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna go try things out in Hawaii, or I'm gonna go to London, or I'm gonna go try different places. And I think that the experiences I had from doing that were worth doing. Um, but at the same time, I think because I was constantly bouncing around, or I didn't kind of grow wherever it was that I was planted, I continued to change my mind. I never got stable enough to put myself in a position to move forward.
So maybe you have to kind of decide if you're willing to, spend a year or two or more, you know, not necessarily moving forward in your life, having great experiences, but not, you know, planting roots and establishing th- things that will help you later in life. So if you're willing to spend the time for the experience, which can be great, and can help in your life, but
Right. No, I think it's one of those things you have to make the decision. And it's funny, as somebody that has bounced around a little bit, my bigger advice is that I wouldn't mortgage everything or live somewhere. Does that
Well,
make
yeah,
sense?
and this is a decision we just very recently had to make,
Right.
and we went back and forth a lot. I was we were looking at going back to Boston, and it was we could only afford it for two
2 years.
years.
Yeah.
That we
So
were going to
it's
be there for 2 years.
after 2 years, then we were going to be basically financially out of money. So
Yeah,
we couldn't
and
live there
not
anymore.
only that, but instead of being able to save over those 2 years, we were gonna be out of money. Was an experience worth leaving our family for?
No savings left,
Yeah, get
nothing.
rid of, just spend everything we have on having the experience. And now we have two girls, and I've got to finish school still. That's what I was looking at doing over
Right.
there. We ultimately, I guess I did, you left the decision up to me. I kind of ultimately decided that it wasn't worth it.
Well, I was able to keep my job no matter what. So really, it was about you making a decision about where you wanted to go to school, and that was the main thing that factored into that decision making. That's why I kind of left it to you because I the only difference is I either live in Boston or I live in Provo, Utah, right? So uh, I know most people would say, well, of course you want to live in Boston, right? But Provo's pretty good, actually. It's not a bad place to live. So we've been enjoying our time here,
We've
and
taken it for granted before. We're
so
really liking it now.
so one of the things that I think I wanted to kind of share is that I think that this idea of being, because I did go to a lot of different places and live in a lot of different places, but ultimately my focus at each place was just kind of enjoying and taking in wherever it was that I was, and trying to be as successful as possible, and do the things that I could do when I was at these different places, and some of them just had a regular expiration date, things that wouldn't continue, whether it was an internship or whether it was just the job I had when I was in Hawaii or whatever. That was only a limited time thing, and so it wasn't really it wasn't really something that was going to last for a long time anyway. So I did jump at some of those opportunities, and I would encourage people to do some of that, right, and take those opportunities to do that. But ultimately, like at some point, like there's always kind of that next thing that you can always go for. When what you need to do is at some point you got to make a decision to kind of stay and then really invest and make the best of where you're at.
Well, I mean, we're ultimately looking for a place where we do want to plant and grow for the foreseeable future. And I don't know if it's here or if it's somewhere else. We kind of dream of being somewhere a little more exciting or adventurous. But at this point, I think we're both kind of content
Yeah,
and willing to
it's
take what comes to
it's
us.
hard, right? I mean, it's hard to know.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of decided, like, if we just had the money to go wherever we want, we probably would move, right?
Probably.
So
But
I don't
who?
know.
I
It's still
mean, but I
interesting.
mean, almost nobody is in that scenario,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, that's one of those things where because of that, like you look at your limitations. We live in a really nice community now. We we have family around. We have most everything we want at this point. Weather's not our favorite. It's either really hot or very
Ton of
snowy.
snow. Yeah.
So it's not really kind of our place for weather, but I don't know. So these are the things that you have to kind
Yeah. I
of.
guess you decide what's important to you,
So this,
and you do. I think you do have to. I know it's not a luxury a lot of people have, but it is really helpful to be able to try different places out.
the other thing, yeah, I think you do try different places out, right? And you kind of visit places, and when you're at different places, you kind of see and put the value on the things that are more or less important to you at different times in your life, right? So
But if you don't have that luxury, like for instance, us here, all I wanted was to get out of this city. But once I
we did
decided to
move,
stick it
right?
out,
Yeah.
yeah, we did move and it was worse and we came back. And once we decided, or I decided that we were going to stick it out here for a while, we started looking into what this city has to offer and realized that it has a lot of great opportunities. And so if you are, kind of in a place where you're stuck, you can't go anywhere at the moment, you just look into what that particular location has to offer, I think.
All right, so let's talk about then um, why would is under what circumstances it probably the best choice then to pick up where you are and get out of town. Change that soil, grow somewhere else.
I don't know. I don't know because we had that opportunity and we decided not to take it.
No,
So
well, so one is if you're totally unhappy with where you're living,
yeah,
right?
well,
If you
like me, when I first went off to college, I was totally unhappy. It was worth it to come back, but I kept in the back of my mind that it wasn't the location that was making me happy. It was the atmosphere that I was a part of, and as a freshman in college, I didn't have the luxury to just move apartment buildings. Really, I was in my dorm, and so maybe if I was a little older, I can appreciate. Well, I love the city. I can just go find somewhere where I can build new circles and you know see if I like it better.
right. I mean, I think that's it's an interesting thing. If you're dissatisfied with a place, right? Like, of course, change, right? But at the same time, like,
But you have to give it sincere effort too.
right. So if you're in a place, so I guess so then that brings us to our next thing. How do you grow with where you're living, right? I think most people, as crazy as this is, like most people, like I can hardly remember. In fact, I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Iowa, and I can remember my neighbors to the left side of my house, but I do not know the names of the people who live to the right of me or across the street or to the house over here or the house over there. Like I I only knew one of my neighbors. Like it's amazing how as time goes on, it seems like people used to know who their neighbors were and kind of be aware of, oh, well, that's Mr. Johnson and this is what he does, and oh, that's him and this is what he does. And that doesn't really seem to be the case anymore. Like people don't know their neighbors, right?
Yeah.
And they don't, they have little people don't even really seem to have like huge social groups anymore or whatever. It's like here's the people I know at work and here's the people I see at my house,
Yeah.
right?
But that is a huge component of being happy somewhere. You have to make the effort to get to know people or you're not going to be happy. You're going to be lonely and isolated.
And loneliness and being isolated. That can be tough. The famous quote, no man or woman is an island. Have you ever seen the movie About a Boy?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Hugh Grant.
I don't remember it.
Fantastic movie. He talks about how no man is an island, uh, and how he says that that's totally ridiculous, right? Then what ends up happening is he grows close to this boy, right? So anyway, long and short, at the end he says, "I still believe that no man is an island, right? Or I do believe, but they are an island chain or something like that. I don't know. I just murdered that movie. But basically, the point is that yeah, no, you can't. We're all made up by the people that we know and that we're around, and a lot of our happiness, and a lot of our joy and how much we enjoy an area has to do with getting into that. So, how do you meet people, right? Well, I don't know. Listen, what are the odds that you're actually going to like the person that lives next door to you, right? For me, probably not great.
He doesn't like most people.
I struggle. I struggle a little bit uh, because it's small talk, right? Small talk is the thing that
But you have
bothers
to get
me.
through the small talk to
I,
get to something bigger.
I know it. I know it.
Take it step by step.
Step by
Yeah, I
step.
don't know. It depends what kind of thing you're into. I think you can take classes. You can find, yeah, groups in the city or town that you're in, and but you do have to make an effort. It won't just happen.
The hardest thing to say to somebody else, hi, my name is, and then your name.
Practice it.
Pra- Practice it.
If that's the hardest part.
It
Just
is
trying to
hard
be
though.
helpful.
It is hard to. Well, I thought you meant like to the mirror, like practicing at home.
Well, if that's what helps
Like,
you.
hello, my name is. No, but like I think that it really is hard to kind of step out and say, hey, I'm Keith.
Absolutely.
This is what I'm about. Is that cool?
That's why we just do it to a camera.
That's why. That's partially why. But I do think that that's a huge part. Is you if you're gonna grow somewhere, then you've got to figure out your social circle, and you've got to find a way to kind of be happy with the people that you're gonna be living around, right? And the thing is that they're salt of the earth. Like there's great people everywhere, right? Obviously, and I think that's one of the things that I might that's one of the things that I might have really not done as much of at other places as I went from point to point to point. I'm in Hawaii and I'm not really meeting that many people. I'm just going out and trying to surf and to hang out at the beach and do stuff like that. I also, again, I knew there was an expiration date, but one of the big things that you'll find out as you do things in life is that you've got to decide, right, to really go out and meet people and try your best to do that. Okay, we got a question in. Again, our man Brian. Shout out to Brian. Good guy. He asked the question, when do you know that you've made the effort? When you feel good about it.
Well, like,
Honestly,
I think that, sometimes you don't realize until after the fact. I thought I had made a good effort. Again, going back to the same thing when I was in Boston, that's why I felt good about leaving. But I probably could have tried a little harder. I thought I was making an effort with my roommates and the people around me, but it was, people that had more in common with, that I had a connection, like a way to interact with them, but I kind of took that for granted and didn't try hard enough. And so I kind of watched, them grow to be friends, and I knew that if I had tried a little harder that I could have been a part of that. So if you find people who you feel like you can have a good connection with, I think, and you just have to feel like you make the effort with them.
well, but the other thing that I would suggest is when you've tried to make friends and stuff like that is when you've made them. Like there's a lot of people
Right.
out there just dying for people to
That's
hang
true.
out with,
People are
and it's
mostly
just
pretty
like
friendly.
everybody, yeah, like I mean, there's you'll find commonalities with people, and then the next thing if it's relative, I mean, it's not that hard to get people to come over or to do something or meet up or do something with people because I think people are ready. They want to do it,
I think
and
that's
so
true. It's going to feel unnatural at first, but if you're going out of your way, you can know that you've tried.
right. And the other thing is pro tip: don't make people feel like you're trying to work them. Right. Again, I've talked about manipulation. Just don't do. It's funny. I like to make fun of the how to win friends and influence people book. Right. Like I think that book is funny title, and Rockefeller wrote it, I think. And anyway, but the bottom line is that I think that that's a funny thing to think about because it's a hugely selling book in the self-help world is this idea of how to win friends, right? And of course, and then he has to add and influence people. So not only that, like they're going to think you're amazing, but I just think that. Yeah, I think the way to win friends is this, you find commonalities, and that's the other one though is there may be things that the people that you meet are like way into, and it doesn't make sense. So, for instance, I made two good friends in college, Cade and Tyler, and something that they like doing, right, we both like sports. We all like sports, but one of the things that they loved was UFC, right? And it's like I had never watched it. I thought it was brutality. I thought it was like crazy. And so I took the time to try to like figure out like why it made them tick, and I went and watched, some fights with them, if that makes sense. And like because I was willing to kind of embrace what they liked and to do some of that, we were able to build some commonalities and some experiences and stuff. So don't just like be like, oh well,
If they like something, write them off for it. That's a topic for another time, though. We have a lot to say on that.
absolutely, absolutely have a lot more on that. But how do you know when you've made the effort? I think when you feel good about it, but you probably will be successful if you make an effort at it. So that's that. Thanks again for sending in the question. Okay, so that's the big thing. At some point, you have to decide to grow where you've been planted, and I think I would we would suggest, of course, making that decision and trying your best to grow where you're planted no matter where you're at, right? And I think that if you do that, you'll really find yourself being a happy person. It's hard to be miserable when you have a kind of a goal, and that goal to really integrate yourself within a community, or to serve, or to be involved with any of the events that are going on around the town. Like you're going to feel better about some of the stuff that goes on. So if there's like farmers markets, or if there's anything like that, if you try to embrace what the community offers, you're going to feel a lot better about the place that you're living. But
And you'll meet people if it's something that you're passionate about.
absolutely, I made a friend.
Somewhere.
There's a grilled cheese place that does a food truck. Shout out to the Mousetrap. They're the best. And
gourmet grilled cheese.
Yeah, oh, it's fantastic. And but I met Judy. Judy is the lady who took my order, and we became friends.
All right, there you go. That's all it takes.
So, but that would be my thing. But okay, and then the big thing though beyond that is it is though appropriate at time to time in your life to change where you're at, right?
Yeah,
and so
definitely.
Never rule that out. Don't be afraid to do that. But at the same time, like I think that there's.
But if you make the change, give it an honest effort.
That's true. Yep. And I think that there's too much priority put on, making changes.
Yeah. I can agree with that.
All right. So don't get too sucked in. Don't get too sucked in the vortex of more or
something better out there.
Something better out there, whatever it is. Appreciate what's going on in your life. Thank you for tuning in, and thanks for the question, Brian. Thank you. If you have any questions for the show, you can email us at shirtsroarin20s@gmail.com.
Or tweet at me, at Shearstonkari. We're happy to answer questions.
Also, check out our website, www.roarin20s.
20 is the numbers.
20s. Roarin20s.com.
No G. Man, this is confusing.
Oh, boy. Roarin20s.com. You can read posts, most of them written by the lovely Shearston, and you can. There's so much to learn and read about. We're all trying to do this together. So if you have any advice for us or any comments, we'd love to hear it. Thanks.